welcome to Middle Earth Readings. Today it's Monday the 19th of April. My name is Maggie Cunningham. I'm the founder of magginrose.com, which provides resources, support and training for seers, healers, magicians and mystics following the pathways of the northern tradition. These are the mystery pathways. That encompasses the Germanic languages and countries, Scandinavia, Germany and that part of Europe, as well as the British Isles, and in particular sort of Anglo-Saxon parts and Scotland, where there was a lot of crossover at that time. And as always, I'm here on a Monday to talk to you about what we can see happening through the runic wheel as the year turns. What insights can we draw? What wisdoms are coming through? And today, the goddess Skadi she's very vocal today. So we're going to be talking a little bit about her and her mysteries. But before we did that, I wanted to start off, first of all, by, as always, if you're joining me live, please do share what runes are coming up for you in the chat box. I love to hear them and see how they are integrating with the with the energies and what's here for the week. It would be lovely if somebody could say hello, because I've been having problems with the comments box and seeing them coming up. So I'm hoping that your comments will come up for me today. And if not, I'll do what I normally do, and I'll post some replies afterwards. But fingers crossed that I'll actually be able to see your comments. So I've got some questions for you to ponder that have come up through preparing for this reading for you today. So the first question I've got for you to think about is what is birthing in me? What's birthing in me? And by that I don't mean what are you creating? What are the sort of outcomes that you're looking for in the world out there? Actually thinking about what's bubbling away under the surface for you, maybe like parts of you that have shaped or changed or developed in the last months or the last year, that are looking to come into stronger presence. Sometimes that can feel a bit uncomfortable for us. Change often feels uncomfortable, but what's niggling away at you? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the reading. So the second question following on from that is, what can I do to make this birthing more powerful? All right, so we can at times resist that, what's coming forwards in ourselves. We can sometimes be afraid of the power that we feel within us, or the drive or the call, particularly when it calls us to being somebody who's bringing change into the world. So that's the second question for you. And I can see that there are comments, and I can see that I can't see them. So I'm going to try and open them on my phone so that I can see them there. The next question for you is, what feeds your innermost soul? What feeds your innermost soul? That part of you that is secret and sacred. What feeds it, and what more could you do to nurture it through the coming? This really is a question about the coming month, because this comes from Skadi, and particular from Largus, which here we have the Largus rune, which is going to be very powerful, really coming into presence through the coming weeks. I'm just having a look to see if I can make it so I can see the comments in any way. Otherwise, I will try and look on my phone. I'm really sorry that I can't see them at this point. Okay, so those are the questions for you to think about through the course of the reading. And as I mentioned, the goddess Skadi has come forward very strongly to speak to us. It is the opening of Skadi's hall today. Now, the halls of the gods, for those of you who don't know, correspond directly to the signs of the zodiac. So this was a system that was put in place by Freya Aswin. I don't know how she created, discovered these correspondences, but they do work really, really well. And I found them quite helpful, because I did follow the zodiac for quite a long time, and I'm still interested in the zodiac, if I'm honest. And it's it's something that most people, particularly sort of Western cultures, are aware of. It sort of permeates our day-to-day existence. And so I think that Freya Aswin was probably looking for something that was more authentic to her and her northern tradition roots. And so we have 12 halls of the gods, and they correspond directly to the zodiac. So Taurus, we're entering Taurus, and Skadi's hall corresponds to Taurus. So for those of you who do follow the zodiac, you can look for, I think Freya Resum did a pretty bang up job, I have to say, in choosing the correct halls and deities. Skadi represents, independence. She's very fierce, incredibly stubborn, tenacious. She knows where she's comfortable, and she prioritizes that sense of, I want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to be in the seat of my own power. That all comes forward. And so for those of you who are Taurian, I'm Taurian, I like Skadi, might feel a little bit of that. But she does have other aspects to her. So water, for example, comes through very strongly with her. And maybe like sort of passion, following your passion and your independence of spirit. And for me, that actually did resonate a bit more strongly with my sense of who I am and what I stand for than what I knew from Taurus. So Skadi's story is a really fascinating one. So she wasn't a god. She wasn't a member of the Aesir, but she becomes a member of the Aesir. She's actually a giantess. And she followed the rules of, it's like Wergild, for those of you who know about. So her father is killed and the Aesir are responsible. And so she's like, well, right, I'm going to follow the rules that they've set up, I'm going to follow them. So she marches to Asgard, where they all live, giantess on her own, going to the realm of the gods. Gods are not traditionally known for being nice to giants. Skadi doesn't care. She marches there. She demands, what are you going to give me in return for the fact that you've killed my father? These are your rules. Your rules are that you must give recompense when you have when you've murdered or destroyed. And so they honour this. They don't bash her head in or send her packing or anything like that. They honour this. They can feel maybe the ferocity of her, and perhaps they're thinking, this is somebody it'll be good to have on our side. And so they give her two things. They give her, they place her father's eyes in the sky, so that he's memorialized in that sense. The eyes are in the sky, as stars. And they offer her the hand in marriage of one of the gods. And the only caveat is that she has to choose who she's going to marry. She gets to choose, but she has to choose based on their feet. So I sort of think to myself, that's a really weird way in which to form a life partnership based on somebody else's feet. Now she wants the god Balder, who is he's young, he's vital, he's the son of Frigg and Odin, but she chooses based on the feet. She chooses a pair of beautiful feet. Attractive, delicious, gorgeous feet, and she thinks that's going to be Balder, but it's not. It's Njord. Now Njord is the god of the sea, and he's the god of the land and the sea, the seashore, treasures, fertile lands. He's very magical. He originally comes from the Vanir. It's interesting that Skadi and Njord do actually have that in common. That Njord was part of a hostage exchange. So he came from Vanaheim, but he moves to Asgard. And Skadi, she came from Jotunheim, but also becomes a member of the Aesir. So they do actually have that in common. But he's maybe a slightly more, let's say, elderly deity, with all respect, than Balder. And he wasn't really what Skadi wanted, to be honest. But they marry. And she goes to his hall, and his hall is also in the halls of the Wheel of the Year. And she goes there, and she's deeply unhappy. She's like, I'm not happy here. This is not my place. And you can imagine, she's like this. I am not in the seat of my power, and I've given up a lot. I was powerful, and I went to the gods, and I said, this is what I want. They've given this to me. I have a seat at the table. I help with the decision making and everything, but not happy. And she actually returns to her own hall. She returns to Thrudheim, which means noisy home. Not only does she return to Thrudheim, and you might imagine that whereas Njord, his hall is going to be glamorous, full of riches, the fruits of the sea, just gorgeous, exuberant luxury is what I always imagine with Njord. Skadi's hall, I think, is quite minimalist. It's in the mountains. It's called noisy hum. I was thinking about sort of echoing with these resounding halls, and that's where she feels comfortable. That's where she wants to be. So she lives in Thrudheim, even though she remains married to Njord, and she keeps her seat at the table. Not only is that the case, she also takes on a lover, the god Ul, who has another one of the halls in the 12. And he is the god of winter. He's very independent in spirit, and you can imagine the two of them speeding across the snow and the mountains, and she's in her element in this point, which is one of the reasons why I asked you the question about what nourishes your innermost soul. So you can see a lot within Skadi's story. Now I wanted to give you a little bit of, for those of you, I know you've come here and talk about runic astrology, but some of you may not know about the birth runes, which I work with as well. So obviously you can have your chart done, you can find out where all the planets are within your wheel of the year at the point that you were born. And those are, for me, are gateways of power and wisdom. When we draw those energies of those runes into us, then we can express ourselves in our most powerful form when we're working with our birth runes. So now, as we're talking about a hall in quite some depth today, I just wanted to mention that each hall spans 3 runes. So if you imagine that the hall is approximately 4 weeks in duration, the first week will be 1 rune. So in Skadi's case, it's Manaz. So we're in the half month of Manaz at the moment. The sun, Suna's chariot, is in Manaz. And that brings out the sovereign aspect of Skadi, this sort of sovereignty, power, the ability to say, I will sit in my seat of power. I will demand what is mine. She's confident. She has that real sort of sense of confidence and justice and what's right. So if you have birth runes at this point, if you have birth runes in Manaz, it might well be that Skadi could be the patron for you if your birth runes fall within the 2nd week of the half month of Manaz. Thor governs the first part of the half month of Manaz. So we have that sense, and this week is that. We're looking at sovereignty, power. It's one of the reasons I was asking about what is birthing in you, and we'll come back to that in terms of Skadi's story. So here we have the Manaz rune, for those of you who don't know what that looks like. And very much we're in a Manaz paradigm at the moment. Frigg's chariot and Odin's chariot, they've been working on in Manaz. So we're standing in our sovereignty. But the main part of Skadi's hall rests within Lagus. So there we have Lagus, the rune of water. And this is where I think the marriage with Njord becomes particularly important. Water, the Lagus rune represents liminal spaces, rebirthing and death as well. It's that cycle of death, of life and death, and the ability to cross between worlds, to transition between different states. So that I mentioned, that's what Skadi and Njord share. That they both have crossed over from a home that they know, and they make a new home or a new life in that sense. And Skadi transitions from being the daughter of Thiazi. She may well have been fierce and powerful and a Jotun, but she transitions and transforms through this story into a powerful goddess. She is still Jotun. She still lives in Thrudheim. She's mistress of her own destiny. She's married to Njord. She possesses the power of the sea, the power of Lagus. She has that power too. She is also now a member of the Aesir. Now she has a seat at the table. She seizes that moment when her father dies, and she's feeling that grief and she's feeling that rage, and she takes her stand. And she goes to the halls of the gods and she says, okay, what is birthing in me? Through this anger, through this loss, through this pain, I feel a sense of justice. I'm going to stand up for it. And what she receives is a more powerful presence, an ability to travel between the realms of air, water, earth. She's got the passion of the relationship with Ul. She's got the riches of the hall of Njord. And something new has been birthed through that process. And it wasn't an easy process by any means. She had to move through fear, I'm assuming, to stand in front of the gods and to face them, but potentially to risk her own death in doing that. But the rewards, this new birthing of self for her are massively powerful. So that Lagus sense of that ability, she claims for herself the power of Lagus, the ability to transform. That's one of the things that she claims. And then at the end of her month, right at the in the 4th week, we'll move into Ingus. So Suna's chariot will move into Ingus. And Ingus is the rune of the seed, its potential, its gateways. So whereas with Lagus, in some ways it's quite flowing. It's not very boundaried. In some ways it sort of resists being bounded. Ingus is much more controlled, contained, represents the sacred within, the seed of something new, the seed of the potential. And to me, in many ways, it represents the way in which when we invest in ourselves and our own inner transformation, then we are able to manifest a different world, a different kingdom for ourselves, which sort of ultimately, I think most of us want to make a contribution to make the world a better place. But all of these runes and this Tale of Skadi is reminding us that we can only do that if we've invested in ourselves, if we have our store of power available to us, which is again why I ask the question, what feeds your innermost soul? So if you think about what is birthing in me, and you think about the Tale of Skadi and the way in which she used hardship and challenge to birth into something new and to become more powerful as that process, that's the question that I'm asking you now. I know I'm certainly feeling an uncomfortable birthing process. It's not an easy birthing process, I would say, of almost, to me, it feels like almost like a skin, like a snake skin is coming off, and I'm doing quite a lot of body movement work to shift that, to allow that to move. And Skadi suggested to me that, through the world, through the realm of Midgard, that is happening, a lot through this time, that people are trying to shed the old and they're trying to allow the new to come through. And what she's reminding me is she's saying that there are many ways in which we can resist transformation, because change in itself is challenging or scary, particularly if you're looking to break rules, to bring something new in, to say, no, we don't agree with the way in which the world is right now. We can feel that we're not safe, that we're not going to be accepted. It goes against a lot of our instincts, a lot of our survival instincts, to stand up and be counted and to allow something new and different to come through and to speak through us. That can be a challenging thing to do. It's one of the reasons why, for me, the choice that Skadi makes to say, I'm not going to stay in Noaton, which is Njord's, I'm not going to stay here. No, I need to nourish my soul. And so she goes back to Thrudheim, So that's why I asked the question, what can you do to nurture your own soul, and what can you do to help the rebirthing process? So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to try and open on my phone the comments so I can see if anybody is saying anything, which I hope you are, in response to the session, because I'd like to know if this is landing for you, if it's coming through for you, or what's coming for you as I'm speaking about this. Now, as I'm looking, I'm going to try and sort of recount that we do have. Oh, we don't want to hear what I'm saying at the same time. That would be weird, wouldn't it? I don't know how to see the comments without it speaking. Okay, I'll try that again in a second. So there are two planetary movements after Skadi's Hall. So Skadi's coming today, and then on the 21st we have whose chariot is it? We've got two chariot movements. Just lost my thread with not being able to see your comments. With Frigg's chariot moves into Lagus on the 21st, and then Odin's chariot also moves into Lagus on the 23rd. So you can see how I was mentioning this idea of embodying the liminal, moving into water. This process of rebirthing is really starting to build, and soon as chariot will move into Lagus next week. So Frigg's chariot and Odin's chariot, they're starting that process for us. So if you think, I mentioned that embodiment, Frigg is very embodied in her power. Lagus is sacred to her. She is spinning the raw fibers of weird and creating the fiber of being out of which the tapestry of being is created. So this is a very magical, deep magical act. And Odin and Frigg are both multifaceted. And I think that what both of them are doing, if you look at this, is they are honouring a very important part of themselves, through which they nourish the rest of the world, but they also nourish themselves. So Frigg is literally, she's spinning. And I always see her in her chamber, pulling the threads in, the fibre in, and spinning. And this is a sacred act, but it's also a very nourishing act for her. Now, she's not out in public and the sovereign in that sense. She's embodying a part of her private identity, that then allows her to move out into the world and make the change. And with Odin, I see him in terms of his relationship with water, you know, hanging over the world tree, over the well of Weird, in that 9 days and 9 nights initiation where he's waiting for the runes to fall, he's gazing into the waters, or he's at Mimir's Brunn, he's down with Mimir's well where he leaves his eye. He places it within the well in order to gain knowledge and insight. He also goes and he gets the mead of poetry and inspiration from the giants, and he carries it back in his own body, this liquid, he carries it in his body. And for those of you who don't know, the Ansu's rune, I don't have the Ansu's rune here to show you, but that's the rune that's sacred to him. One of the ways in which we can trace it back, it becomes back to os, which means estuary. In the Anglo-Saxon, it splits, and one of the runes becomes os, and means estuary, which is water. So Odin, actually, you know, he is a primal water deity, even though we often associate with him with air, very associated with water. So in many ways, he is also honouring an incredibly important aspect of himself, you know, the wisdom seeker. For me, probably the first seed of himself, you know, out of which the All-Father, the Wanderer, the Magician, the Sage, you know, the Warrior, you know, all of these things come forth. But again, he goes back into this, for me, almost the seed self of him. And so I think both of these deities with these movements through this week, with Frigg's chariot, Venus, and Odin's chariot, Mercury, moving into Lagus, are saying to us, and they're saying to us, nurture the seed within, you know, nurture the sacred within you. Okay, so let me try once more to actually see your comments without having to listen to myself speaking at the same time. I'm really sorry, because I'd love to be able to see your comments and actually respond to them in the moment. Bear with me. This is a moment where you can be thinking about the questions that I asked you about what is birthing in me and what feeds my soul. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to see your comments. I'm so sorry. That's really frustrating, because I would love to see what you're saying and to know what runes are coming up for you. Technology is not always our friend. That is what I feel at this point. Technology is not always our friend. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I think I've said everything that I need to say in terms of the runes and the chariots. So I'm going to sign off at this point, and then I'm going to go and look at your comments. It's going to be a little bit shorter. Normally we go for half an hour, but it's a little bit shorter. I'm going to go and look at your comments in the chat box, respond to you in the chat box. Hopefully it will work next week, and I'll be able to see your comments there. But wishing you a great week, full of blessings, full of power. You know, allow what's coming through to, you know, take its space. If you're experiencing any sort of uncomfortableness, it's all part of the rebirthing, is what I'm reliably informed by Skadi and Frigg and Odin.